Now, almost a year ago, I bought this car, which is a Mercedes-Benz A180, as my daily car. However, Volkswagen since then have brought out their new generation Volkswagen Golf. So is it any better, and which one should you consider for your next car? My name is Nick O'Leary, guys, and welcome to the channel. Let's check them both out. Okay, so for starts, I'm just going to run through price first. However, what I don't want to do is run through the kind of specs and packages in that much detail, just because number one, it can change over time, and number two, it will probably be most likely different around the world. But I just kind of want to base this video on the actual cars, kind of as you see here. So for example, this one is a Mercedes-Benz A180 Premium last year. Now, it hasn't had a facelift since then, but the packages and prices may have changed. However, this one here, the Volkswagen, is a Volkswagen Match, and most importantly, a manual as well, which you can't get on the Mercedes-Benz A-Class. So of course, correct at the time of recording, the A-Class starts at £30,720, whereas the Golf, correct at the time of recording, starts at £27,035. So just a little bit cheaper. So when it comes to Mercedes, they have different packages. So they have Executive, Sport, AMG line, Premium, Premium Plus, and a couple of extra things, and of course your choice of colour. However, when it comes to the Volkswagen, they have similar packages, but they're called Lifestyle Match. Then there's R-Line, and then there's a few other special variants like plug-in hybrids, for example, and then of course their fast performance versions like the GTI, and of course their R product as well. So with the Volkswagen, there are more trims and packages to choose from, and most notably, there are different kind of levels of specification and wheels you can choose as well. Whereas on the Mercedes, they're kind of packages that are all bundled together, and you're forced to choose the packages that Mercedes have. Whereas with Volkswagen, you can individually choose some levels of specification if you wanted to. Now, when it comes to the exterior, I'll cover the kind of design and styling in just a second, but I just wanted to touch on the body shape as well. Of course, the A-Class and the Golf that I have here are hatchbacks, but did you know with the Mercedes-Benz A-Class, you can actually opt for a saloon as well. So very, very similar, it just kind of has a saloon at the back of the car. The Golf, however, doesn't have that, but you can choose an estate, or what Volkswagen call the variant. So yes, the optional kind of body shape on this one is a saloon, but on this one, the optional body variant is an estate. So what about dimensions? Well, the A-Class is 4,428mm, width without the mirrors 1796, and height 1423. Now what about the Golf? Well, the Golf is 4,284mm, width 1789, and height 1483, which means the A-Class is slightly longer by about 15cm ruler, give or take. The width 7mm difference, and height 60mm difference. So worth noting if you have a garage, because the Volkswagen Golf is a little bit smaller, but don't let that put you off. It actually does have a larger boot than my A-Class. Now guys, just to save some time, I'm just going to grab the camera and literally walk around both cars on the exterior, kind of like almost like a 360-degree kind of walk around, just so you can see the differences side by side. So let's start on my A-Class first. So, of course, as is customary with a lot of Mercedes-Benz, if you're not familiar, they do have a lot of logos on the front. So yes, all of these are Mercedes-Benz logos. So if you're someone who likes to kind of show off, it might be something you might quite fancy. Compare this with the Volkswagen Golf though, it is a lot more subtle. Very stylish still though, so they kind of do have slightly more stylish lights compared to the A-Class. Note here, they're side by side. So it kind of has just different elements kind of showing off. Now notice as well, also on the bonnet of the A-Class, there are power domes on the top here. Again, very, very similar to the Volkswagen Golf. They're just slightly kind of more towards the sides. Now, one huge thing to note is that on Mercedes-Benz A-Classes, you kind of only get to have these wheels and these ones. Those are the kind of only couple of choices if you're on AMG line, whereas on the Volkswagen Golf, this one I mentioned earlier is of course the Volkswagen Match, but there are plenty more to choose from on their trims and packages. So if you're someone who likes wheels, Volkswagen offer a lot more customization than Mercedes. Now looking at the rears of the cars, you'll notice a slight difference there. On the Volkswagen Golf, for example, it has a very, very large C-pillar. So that's this blue panel just here, compared with some other cars. Now the Volkswagen have had this for absolutely years, and it's kind of one of the most iconic characteristics of the Golf, having a kind of more squared off back at the rear. But yes, you'll notice more of these panels on the Volkswagen Golf kind of being a little bit more squared off, whereas on the Mercedes-Benz A-Class, it's a lot more rounded on the panels. This is if you're kind of looking at them side by side. So I'm kind of talking about this line that goes all the way down here towards the front of the car versus the kind of more rounded panels here. Very similar on the A-Class, it's just a little bit more pointy on the Golf. Even the light design on the Golf as well is a little bit more kind of squared off, whereas on the Mercedes-Benz A-Class, a lot more rounded. Oh, and one other thing to add as well, yes, of course, there's so many stars on the front on the Mercedes-Benz grille, but the Volkswagen badge does illuminate at night time. Something that the Mercedes-Benz doesn't do at factory. So guys, you'll have to let me know which one your favourite is down below in said comment section. Now when it comes to the boots, of course they are both hatchbacks, meaning the whole kind of boot goes up with the glass. Now for the A-Class it's 350 litres, but if you fold the seats down it will go to quite an impressive 1,190 litres. The only negative thing I have to say about it, and this is through obviously having it for the past year and owning one, is that when you do fold the rear seats down, because of my long kind of legged driving position, which we'll get onto in a minute, you do have to move the front seat forward to get it down, and even then you can't move it all the way back, which is a little bit annoying, but just thought I'd mention it. Now move to the Volkswagen Golf, you'll notice that the boot does look pretty much the same, but is slightly bigger. So this one is 381 litres, but if you fold the seats down, it goes to 1,233 litres. But notice as well, the headrests are slightly different, which means you can actually fold them away. It means folding the seats down. For me, because I'm a kind of a tall, lanky person, some people say, 6'2" with very long legs, means the seats actually go down first time and every time, which is useful when you have a dog or you need to put things in that need to go to the tip or the rubbish dump, that sort of thing. So just practicality, I think actually that bit is a bit easier. And of course the difference between the boots, 31 litres with the seats up and 43 litres with the seats down. So the Volkswagen Golf on that part wins. Now when it comes to rear legroom in the A-Class, that is my driving position. I'm 6'2" and as I mentioned, very, very long legs. So it is quite a squeeze. I could move that like way further forwards, but that is my driving position. That's what I've been obviously driving in all this time. So I'm very, very comfortable there. Obviously I'll test out the Volkswagen in just a second, but yeah, that's my kind of legroom and knee room on that one. In the back there are adjustable vents for the passengers in the rear, and of course a USB-C port down there as well. And as you saw, you can do 40-20-40 split with integrated cup holders. Now when it comes to the Volkswagen Golf rear seats, I would say there is slightly more legroom, and the reason for that is probably because the actual seat on the back is all soft and fabric, whereas it's quite firm on that one, so it means my knees can actually touch it. Yes, they are still touching, this is a hatchback after all, but I will say the seats are a lot softer in this one compared to the Mercedes. In the Mercedes they're quite firm, very supportive, but in this they are a lot softer. There's actually 2 USB-C ports in the back here, so compared to Mercedes-Benz there's only 1 in the rear on the A-Class. There are vents here as well for the passengers to control their climate control on the back, although it is just the vents, just like the A-Class, and cup holders in here as well. Not hidden away, but they're right in the middle, so I guess left passenger, right passenger might have to fight between where their arm goes, or not put it down in the hole, but either way, pros and cons to both. Now guys, this of course is the Mercedes-Benz A-Class up front, and I'm a huge fan of this design layout, kind of integrated screens just slightly protruding from the dashboard here, ambient lighting all built in as well, although it is a little bit tricky to see this during the day just because it is so bright out at the moment and it is mighty hot. But super easy to use. Of course this is the facelift model, so there's no touchpad down here, and it's all touchscreen just up here like this. And the multimedia system itself is very, very easy to use. The only thing I will add in terms of the kind of thing that you see on a lot of cars, this is all high gloss, so I wouldn't recommend putting anything on this down here because it can scratch very easily. And of course, as you can see at the moment, it's a little bit dusty. But that's what a cloth is for. Just give it a good old wipe. Always have one of those in the car. Now, in terms of the actual build quality on the inside, this is one of the reasons why I chose this car, because it is very, very good. Yes, there are a few plastics in some places, most notably kind of down towards the bottom of the car, but those aren't things that you touch day to day. I mean, if you are and that really, really bothers you, then of course there are plenty of other cars out there. But yes, plastics, just to point them out, they're kind of down here on the doors, that kind of scratchy plastic. And I remember reading some reviews before where someone mentioned about the climate control feeling really cheap and nasty. Actually, I think they make a very satisfying click sound over anything. Most importantly, they are buttons compared to the Volkswagen, which we'll get onto in a minute. But this is what I mean, there's pros and cons between it all. Of course, Mercedes has physical buttons for the climate control, and yes, you can do it on the screen as well. Volkswagen has touch, but Mercedes has a touch steering wheel with kind of no haptic feedback. It makes a sound like that, but Volkswagen have listened to customer feedback and they've actually gone back to buttons, but we'll come back to that in a minute. Now, when it comes to this multimedia system, of course, as I mentioned, it is all touch, very, very easy to use. Just kind of a few quick things just to show you how easy it is. So we go navigation, for example, type in where to on the top here, and then you just literally type in where you want to go. So super, super easy. And just to show you what it looks like, let's go. And I've got it muted at the moment because I don't like the sat-nav voice, so she won't talk. But speaking of, you can mute and unmute just there, and there's a finish button at the top. So it is super easy. Also, if you're not a fan of this, there is Apple CarPlay and of course Android Auto, both of which are wireless as long as your phone is compatible, but there are USB-C ports in here as well. In this one, there's 2 USB-C ports here and another one just there, and a 12-volt socket as well, so plenty of power. So with all that in mind, what about the Volkswagen Golf? Now this one is of course completely different because in here there's a built-in screen on the instrument cluster, so yes, that's all digital. And of course the steering wheel, these are all buttons as well, so no touch stuff going on there, so that's obviously pretty good. Then we get on to the multimedia system here. Now this multimedia system is of course this big kind of tablet styled screen plopped on top of the dashboard. Now some people might not like that. However, I do appreciate a big sat-nav screen. There was a car recently I reviewed which had a very, very big screen, and it just makes traveling that much easier with the sat-nav. So I do appreciate a good sized kind of screen for multimedia system. Some people might say, is it too distracting? I don't find that so much because I'm focusing on the road, but hey, again, pros and cons to it all. Now, some of you might be thinking, hang on, Nick, you're missing out the most important thing or the differences between these two cars. There's a gear stick in here. You cannot get a manual in a Mercedes-Benz A-Class now. They stopped that. It was either last year or the year before, but no, if you wanted and you're a true petrol head and want a manual, you can still get a manual in a Volkswagen Golf. So yes, you can get an automatic as well, but hey, this one is manual, so it always takes me back every time I drive a manual. Both cars are of course keyless start, so there's a button here on this one and of course a button over there on that one. So again, both have keyless, both have an electronic handbrake, which is good. Of course that comes off automatically when you put it in drive because it's only automatic. Manual release there, although it does release when you get the biting point on the clutch. And a little tour of the inside here. So there's storage in there, no USB-C port or anything in there. 12-volt socket, obviously cup holders there. Although I can't see oh, there it is, 2 USB-C ports under there. So yeah, very similar, just hidden away at the bottom. All round, they have very, very similar kind of characteristics. They're just designed ever so slightly differently. So what about build quality in this one? Well, of course, Volkswagen have brought this out since that was made. So let's have a look. Well, for certainly, there is still plastic down on the bottom of the doors, which you do find on hatchbacks like this. Again, it's not a bad thing. Having driven this and the Golf R before, which has quite a firm suspension, I'll link that up above, you'll find it's actually still as tight as a drum on the inside of it. So yeah, plastic's kind of down at the bottom, maybe some down there. Yeah, that's plastic down there. And then kind of more premium materials up top. So again, they kind of have that kind of build quality between the two, very, very similar. It's kind of more plastics down low on things you don't touch as much, but then the further up you go, the more squidgy leather, kind of nicer materials are found up there. So again, I don't put my hands down at the bottom of the car. I'm actually driving, so it's not that big of a deal. Now, when it comes to the multimedia system on this one, of course, this is completely different. And I have heard, although I didn't cover Volkswagen at the time, there was kind of some feedback about their multimedia systems as well over the past few years. To be honest, I had used a couple and some were a little bit sluggish, but the new one is really, really good. The main differences that I would say between the two, having spent quite a bit of time in both, is that this one allows a lot more customization. You can move all of these icons around and quite literally make your home screen the way you want it to be, so you can prioritize all the things that you access the most. It does take a little bit of getting used to kind of learn how to control it all, but there are so many things you can do with moving all these icons around and all sorts of things. And as well, it does allow you to change the kind of background colors of the instrument cluster, something that you can't do on Mercedes. Well, technically you can, there's blue and red, but in Volkswagen there's a whole color spectrum. So you can choose whatever color you like and it will change all the kind of outskirts of the dials over here. So from that point of view, there's a lot more customization you can do in this. And then finally, climate control. So this is where there is a slight negative on this one. It is touch kind of climate control. However, these kind of climate control buttons just here, they weren't illuminated before, but now they are illuminated. So it means you can actually see them at nighttime, although they still are touch. If you go into the climate control menu and if we turn it on, you have to control the climate control down here. Just thought I'd mention it because I know some people prefer buttons over kind of touch related systems. So with all of that in mind, I think now we'd better take them out for a drive and let's see how we get on. Oh, this should be fun because this is manual. Now guys, when it comes to the different types of engines on the Volkswagen Golf, they have quite a few compared to the Mercedes. In fact, it's almost double. There's a 1.5 TSI 115 PS, 1.5 TSI 150 PS, 1.5 ETSI 115 PS and 150 PS, 2-litre TDIs 115 PS and 150 PS, some plug-in hybrid variations as well. Then there's the GTI at 265 PS and of course the R 333 PS. Now the one I have here is a 1.5 litre 115 PS, whereas compared to my A-Class, which is 1.3 litre 136 horsepower. Okay, into drive and no, we can't. It's not automatic, it's a manual. Into first and away we go. So let's get the biting point. So it's been a little while since I've driven a manual, but having said that, if manual's the car you're after, Volkswagen Golf is the clear winner on that one. So yeah, we'll get out on the open road and see what this one's like. Of course, when driving a new manual for the first time,
please make a U-turn in 400 yards.
We're definitely going to want to turn him off. Navigation announcements off. So, little difference on there. There's 2 clicks to mute the sat-nav on a Volkswagen, but 1 click on a Mercedes. But again, there's just differences. If you know where it is, which I did a review on the ID7 before, and it's in the same place because it's a very, very similar kind of multimedia system. But yeah, what's it like to drive? First impressions of the Volkswagen Golf. Weirdly, I did actually drive the Golf R before, although that was a prototype and that was in Germany on their very, very unique roads with the Autobahn. But I would describe this as very, very smooth. I don't think anyone these days makes a bad car. They're all really, really good. It just comes down to user preference. I think I would probably describe this one as just ever so slightly softer compared to my A-Class. It's like slightly smoother. Again, you're not going to be disappointed by either car. Both are really, really good. Although I will add, just like in the rear seats, the seats in this are a lot softer than the Mercedes. I'm not sure why. Don't get me wrong, it's a very comfortable car. I've done, oh geez, I think it may have been I think it might have been 6.5 hour drive in my A-Class before. That's like the longest. Obviously I did stop for like a brief moment to grab a quick coffee, but that just proves it is a very comfortable car. It's just the seats are firmer. It's user preference. I definitely got into cars before with very firm seats, and you can still be comfortable. It's just one's firm and one's soft. Now, one other thing I forgot to mention with the multimedia systems on both cars, they both have their own voice assistants, just like everything these days. So Mercedes have Hey Mercedes, and it works very, very well. In this one, there's IDA or IDA, but it is also very neatly integrated into ChatGPT. Now, having ChatGPT in the car would be incredible. For those of you that don't know what this is, it's basically an AI chatbot. You can ask it pretty much anything, and up to a certain date, it can respond in a natural human way. Now, obviously, it's an AI language model, so things might not always be completely correct, but that's what AI models are like. But having that in the car is quite cool. That is very, very cool. I would pay to have that in the car. Okay, here we go. There's 60. Well, I said it wouldn't be the fastest around because it is only 115 PS, but having said that, I personally would probably go for something a little bit faster, but I can imagine this car's quite economical. And also, I'm not the quickest at changing gear, but hey ho, it's been a while. Now, when it comes to engines for the Mercedes-Benz A-Class, they've got slightly less than Volkswagen, but there again, that could be easier to pick. So, for example, my one and the one I have here today is an A180, that's 136 horsepower. Then, of course, there's the A200. Both of these engines, of course, being 1.3 litre, but don't let that put you off. They are quite powerful. 163 horsepower for the A200. Then there's the A200D, which is a 2-litre diesel, 150 horsepower. Then there's the plug-in hybrid at 218 horsepower, then the A35, 306 horsepower, and then the performance-topping A45S, which is 421 horsepower. Makes it one of the most powerful 2-litre engines in the world. 2-litre production engines anyway. But yes, sadly I just have the A180, the slowest one. So, but anyway, it's been good. I really enjoy it. I would have preferred a little bit more power, but Okay, so into drive and away we go. I can say it on this one because this is automatic. So yes. Right, we'll get this out on the road. Obviously, this being automatic, as I mentioned, there are different drive modes in this one. I didn't note any different drive modes on the Volkswagen, probably because it was a manual. But I'd imagine if you go for auto, then you have some different modes. You can choose from eco, comfort, sport, that sort of thing. Now again, of course, I know my car very well. I could talk forever on this car, but driving them back to back, again, you're not going to be disappointed by either one. So say you like, I don't know, Volkswagen, for example, and you go for that one, you won't be disappointed by it. You won't have like buyer's remorse thinking, oh, I should have gone for the Mercedes. As I said in the Volkswagen Golf Drive, I don't think anyone these days makes a bad car. Very few people do anyway. And certainly the cars I like to cover, they're all pretty positive cars. It's just each one implements stuff slightly differently. It just comes down to user preference. But yes, driving them back to back, they are almost identical. As I said, the Volkswagen Golf has slightly softer seats. So from ride comfort, I've got to give it to the Volkswagen Golf. But having said that, I do love the design of this, and the seats are supportive in this, they're just slightly firmer. It's just, again, user preference. One really important thing I did notice as well, that with the Volkswagen Golf, yes, it is cheaper on the road, but does come with less specification, such as like manual, for example. And I did note there was no like reversing camera as standard, whereas there is with this, but this is more expensive, the Mercedes A-Class. So you can get like a lower specification but a still very premium car for less money. Just depends on the gadgets and what options you want to add and things like that. So it's probably worth going on both of their configurators, which I've got to add, both are really, really good. I did customize both of them. So if I was to buy another Mercedes again, this is what it would look like and what I would personally pick. And if I was to buy a Volkswagen Golf, this is what I would pick. Either this or this. I'm kind of torn between a couple of trims, one being the R-Line and then the other one the Style. Now before I head back, we may as well give my car a little run for its money and give it a little launch up the road. Now for this, of course, it does have sport mode because it is an automatic, so I'm going to make use of that and make sure I can make use of all 136 horses. Just thinking about this actually as well, I would say that the road noise on this is slightly more, and that is probably because of the wheel size. So if you're hearing that on the microphone, I've certainly just kind of picked up on that now just from driving them back to back. I would be curious to see what the Volkswagen Golf is like with a similar wheel size, but just thought I'd mention it. Just like before, we'll do a launch up to 60. So here we go, and go. And 60, there we go. I actually would say it's probably not that far off the Golf with the engine that I had there, but yeah, on both I'd rather have something a little bit faster, just from having driven slightly faster cars before. We'll put this back in comfort mode. There we go. Now guys, with these two very, very popular models, the A-Class hatchback and of course the Golf hatchback, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm curious to hear and see what you all have to say. Now, of course, we'll try and reply to every single one of you, which is either going to be a bad decision on my part or a good part. But no, I always, joking aside, I always try and reply to everyone. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, see you then.